So, good evening, everyone. First of all, I'm very glad that we have a chief guest today who has spoken about such an important subject. And thank you, Dr. Sunil from SAM as well. You have set the tone that what is BRSR and why the organization needs to have mission and vision for the long term to achieve their sustainability goals. But I think for doing everything, today's discussion is about BRSR. So if I need to talk about the framework definitely for the audience. So guys, the BRSR is a framework which Indian companies to report on their environmental, social and governance disclosures, which we call ESG. So if you see the BRSR, it demonstrate corporate the company's commitments to nation building and sustainability by in a very transparent manner, and it is also communicating its performance to its stakeholders. So this is the difference you can see between CSR, which we used to do earlier, the terminology we were using, corporate social responsibility. But when we talk about ESG, this is beyond because it mentioned involved the performance of the organization about its environmental performance, social, and its economic. So it's a triple bottom line, a complete protocol of all these three parameters. Next. Yeah. So I think the background which our honorable chief guest has already given some glimpses of that how the journey of BRSR in India has been introduced by Ministry of Corporate and Affairs in 2011. So we were just looking into some national voluntary guidelines that time, but the SEBI has introduced then. If you see earlier, it was for the thousands, 100 companies. Now the guidelines have been come for the 1,000 listed companies by the market capitalization, just to include, BRSR in their annual reports. So it has become a mandate for 1,000 listed companies. Apart from that, if you see the funds in India, which contribute only around 0.05% of the global assets in the sustainable funds, even out of eight ESG funds in India, six were launched in COVID era in 2020. So thereby indicating the increasing focus and appetite for sustainable investing. Even you can see due to climate scenario, global warming, we are discussing about this Mother Earth temperature and the expectations, we are having impacts of the global warming. So there's a lot of, the buzz all around globally about this ESG. So even the entire social media is full of, this ESG jobs, ESG investing. So this is what the BRSR has, come up with the guidelines and very well set framework for the Indian market to bring a responsible framework for India where companies can contribute their responsibility towards their nation about environmental as well as economy as well as their social endeavors. And I would also like to mention here that our Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Narendra Modi, he also acknowledged, this particular ERS framework of BRSR for making the companies for their transformation in a responsible manner, how they will change their vision and do the transition in a very sustainable business manner. So let me tell you the BRSR framework, it comprises of three very important sections when we talk about the disclosures. So one is about your journal disclosures, and second is your management and process disclosures. And third one is about the principal voice performance disclosures, which are basically nothing. It's just a nine principles which has been designed in a very well settled framework. And each principle gives you a lot of insight about all the disclosures, what should be mandatory and what should be voluntary. So here I'll be just talking about general disclosure are very simple about the organization, like about your organization, like what is the details, like your listed entity, your products, services you are dealing into, what kind of business operations you are dealing, how many employees you have, your stakeholders, internal, external, all these definitions in the general disclosures about your holdings, subsidiaries, your CSR details, all these comes under the general disclosure. And in the management disclosure, it is more about your how do you see the inclusion of your the policies, in line with this nine principle which BRSR defined. And the policy procedures, of course, that is also integral part of the management disclosure. Then also your vision, your company statement by the directors, then your goals and targets, and also your codes, certifications, levels, standards, whatever your company has achieved as a credential is, the field they are dealing with. So all those certifications and codes are integral part of this management disclosure. And apart from that, there is a statement by the director, like what is his mission and vision towards, the long term sustainability goals, how he feels, what how he wants to take his company to a newer heights when it is in a responsible manner, not just from the conventional point of view. So how he sees that all transition factor, what is his understanding about that. Then also that how you define the authority, decision, formation of committee is a very, very important as a management disclosure, because that's the starting point in any organization. When you define the responsibility metrics, that who will do what, when you define the ESG targets. And also then when you look the national guidelines of BRSR and you review, and you basically you try to synergize it with your current operational requirements, and you make it more responsible towards your stakeholders, towards the environment, and towards the larger segment of the community. So it's a very integrated approach. And another factor in the management disclosures, that's about the independent assessment by the third party, which adds a lot of, I would say, credential that there is a third party who also see your ESG sustainability reporting, so that they verify and they do the validation of all the compliances. So basically, your the whatever you are doing and you are trying to prove through execution, complying. So everything is through a check on. So third party is doing that aspect, and you can call it a regional. You can call it third party assurance, which is a regional assurance that is defined by the SEBI. So now let's talk about those principles in the third section after general and management disclosure. So now let's talk about those principles. So there are 9 principles, as I said earlier. So principle one talks about how your businesses you should conduct and govern themselves with the integrity and in a manner that you are following ethical behavior, how you have the accessibility to all your stakeholders regarding your policy mechanism, how you are bringing your decisions, top decisions about your company, and how you are disclosing to all your stakeholders. And also you are taking accountability, and how you establish your governance structure, which is in line with the sustainable development goal 16 number, SDG 16, which is about peace, justice, and strong institutions. So when you do the disclosure for your sustainability reporting under BRSR, principle one, you have to do it thorough study and introspection of each and every disclosure, and you need to write the reporting in line with this principle one. So then comes to the principle two. So when we talk about principle two, it's about basically how do you ensure in your business and operation that you are providing goods and services in a manner that is sustainable and safe. So that means it doesn't have a negative impact on the community or individuals. So these are sustainable and these are safer when you talk about the consumers. And this is very much in line with the SDG 12, which talks about sustainable production and consumption. Similarly, when it also includes safety and resource efficiency, when you design it, when you manufacture it, so how do you address its life cycle approach, which is cradle to cradle? You can define your boundaries for that, but that's very, very important, because how you are minimizing your overall environmental footprint, that becomes very important. Then that's why only you can optimize the resources, and you can say that it is a sustainable, it is a reliable, and it is a safe products and services which you are offering to the customers. And it is also about to understand that material sustainability issues in the have you addressed that in the product life cycle and supply chain of the vendors, which is very, very important, we need to address in the principle 2. Now, if you look into the principle three, that's more about that how you promote the well-being of all employees, not only the employees but also their families and entire value chain. So from where you are purchasing the products, purchasing the goods, purchasing the raw material, so you have to see taken in the consideration all the employees, like all the stakeholders who are part of your value chain system. So apart from that, SDG 8 is also very important in Principle 3 because it helps you to promote diversity. And when I talk about diversity, that means it's about equity, dignity, and well being. And basically, it's a provision of decent work, good work practices. So, well being of employees and their family is also one of the inclusive aspect, in the Principle 3. So, it is not just restricted to employees, but their family as well. So, if you look into the Principle 4, next. If you look into the principle 4, that talks about the interest and responsiveness about the company towards its stakeholders, not only their own employees, but also it is you have to include the impact of your businesses on the natural resources, habitats, communities, and environment. So it is a very macro level understanding of your impact of your business and operations or the larger societies and environment all, even to protect the interest of vulnerable societies, marginalized societies. Those are very, very important aspect under the principle for disclosure. You cannot ignore this. So you have to see at the community level as well as the individual level, which is very important in the principle 4. And also you have to maximize the positive impact and minimize the adverse impacts. So basically all these principles are, giving thirst to follow the good practices in overall business operations. So why, how you can become more sustainable, more responsible, not only to your employees but also the larger section of the community and the vulnerable people of the society as well, and you count that impact, which is very important. Then coming to the principle 5, it is very, very important because it talks about human rights. So it is very important for the human resource department of any organization to have such policy mechanism where human rights are very well addressed as an indivisible manner and no discrimination. And even if you see the inspiration from Constitution of India for this principle 5 has been considered even by the UN guiding principles also. So this is what human rights, it defines the responsibility of business towards the human rights, which is very, very important, need to address when you write the report under BRSR protocol. And if you see the principle 6, this talk about when you need to make efforts as an organization to protect and restore the environment. Let me tell you, the principle 6 is just more about environment. It is a complete portfolio, 360-degree, I would say the portfolio of environmental, all consideration, which defines your environmental responsibility, your environmental consciousness towards all the aspects of environment. If I talk about biodiversity, if we talk about pollution, if we talk about natural resources, if we try to address climate change. So all the mitigation measures, adaptation and resilience. So all these factors need to be taken into consideration under principle 6. So very, very important. How do you map? How do you see the stats of your energy efficiency? How do you see your consumption patterns of these particular resources which affects your environment? And how do you see the nature-based solution which affects your biodiversity? How you can revive that? How you can repair that? So those aspects are coming into the picture under SDG goals 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So basically, when you look into the principle 6 disclosure, here very important aspect is we have to assess the environmental impacts, and then we have to also formalize the strategies and steps to minimize it. This is what the entire the strategy when we consider this environmental management at organization level. First, we find the impacts, then we formalize the strategies, and then we define the resource allocation, we define the responsibility, then we measure and monitor continuously to achieve some sort of performance in terms of environmental performance. So that may be your energy performance, that may be your water performance. You may be good at any subject of related to environment. So you can consider, how you relate your business with environmental aspects, because that is case to case. And apart from that, you have to also look into the precautionary principles at all the actions you follow within your organization. If you are a manufacturer, so what kind of, the manufacturing facility you have? So how do you map your pollution aspects there? How do you see your environmental impacts there? If you are in the real estate player, so how do you map your energy efficiency? How do you see water or all other usages or material efficiency? So it is case to case and depending about the business you do. So your environmental goals and settings and your management practices depends upon the type of business you deal with, and you understand its impacts. You do the inventory of that, then you define the strategy about that. So it's just about that. Next. So principle 7 basically talks about more regulatory policy and how your organization is doing engagements with the local governments and also looking into the redressal of grievance and influencing the public policy. So to expand the public good through public policy advocacy, it is addressed in the principle 7. And principle 8, it talks about inclusive growth and equitable development. So basically, if you see the 135 section of the Companies Act under 2013, you will find that it is moreover about the development of the country. So how we see the principle 8 in such a way, so how the companies could contribute for their nation's agenda and its regulatory framework at national level as well as regional level. So how do you see your all strategies which you are formulating for your company, how it is in line with the nation agenda, which is very, very important. Just like, we have a net zero 2070 goal set by our prime minister. So how do we are also looking as an organization about our decarbonization roadmap. So how do we see all those aspects within our company boundary? So that is very, very important. So if you see principle 8 again, so it has the collaboration between three aspects. One is the government, business, and civil society, because these three parameters are interdependent on each other. So these three are very, very important in the principle 8 disclosure. If you see the principle 9, it basically talk about it's about the value to their consumers in a responsible manner. So basically it address SDG 12, where we are basically addressing that how to minimize excessive consumption, so that for the consumers as well as the planet for both. So how do a company or business see this particular aspect at a micro level inspection they do, and they understand the need of this particular aspect and try to reduce their consumption patterns, and they have a worry for the planet, they have a they are also looking into the interest of the consumer about their health and well-being, everything. So how safely they are selling the goods and services to the consumer, so how they are creating the value for both, it's a win-win situation. So principle 9 is also very, very important and in line with the SDG 12. But if you see that, we have some essential principles for the disclosure, and there is a voluntary disclosure. So we can choose essential or must in the disclosure. When I'm talking about the requirements, when you write the reporting framework, essential you cannot avoid. It is a must. But when it is a voluntary part, which is additional, then you can choose whatever the suitable to your organization, what is your materiality issue you are doing the inventory accordingly, you can pick the specific area. So that is up to you, depending on the type of organization you are dealing with and the type of business you are doing. Next. So after this nine principles, basically, if we see that we have a lot of challenges, we always talk about challenging, but I always personally feel that although there are challenges, but we need to always have a positive approach, because challenges are always there. We need to cope up the challenges in any way, because we know that the problem is the lack of data, lack of skill talent pool, difficulty in measuring and reporting the metrics. We know all these problems comes into the picture when we start this such BRSR reporting framework for the organization. But how do we understand these challenges and doing a transition in such a way so that everybody is behaving so responsible in the company, taking the responsibility of each and every materiality issue, each and every nine principles they are considering as an integral part of their business strategy, and coping up with all those challenges using right technologies, doing a lot of design interventions, allocating fund properly, and even the top level people, they are taking right decisions at right time. I think this is just creating a buzz within the organization, and just coping up with all the challenges with the positive, I would say, spirit, which is very, very important. Next. So apart from the challenges, I think we can't neglect the benefit, because when you do the BRSR, it is a value creation pathway. So basically, it enhances the transparency. It does you win the stakeholder trust, which is the most important for a business. You need to look into your brand proposition. You need to win the trust of the stakeholder, financial institutions, your consumers, which is very, very important. And even you are minimizing your risk, not only climate risk I'm talking about, but the regulatory risk as well. You minimize that risk also when you adopt the BRSR set of framework, because when you minimize the regulatory risk, so that also defines your long term goals in a very I would say efficient manner. So apart from that, a data management is a very, very important, because without data management, you cannot achieve the setting your set goals and targets. So it's very, very important to understand whether what kind of data you need and how you collect that data, what kind of procedure you need to collect that data, and that data is a quality data or not. So how you scrutinize that, how do you understand that, how you use your skills and expertise in that. This is what the CSO Global V people are doing that particular aspect here. So if you see the community impact and improved ESG performance, this is a complete 360-degree portfolio and a pathway to value creation. If you use this nine principle and complete, I would say, the set of BRSR framework. So you are basically adding a value creation not only for your company but for the nation, for the people, for the community, and for individuals. Next, next, Meeta. Yeah. So here I will be just giving you some hint about that. There is a BRSR core, which was a subset of BRSR, and it has some key performance indicators and KPIs, which SEBI had introduced as a ESG attributes, and they call it principle of comply or explain. That means either you comply. If you are not complying, then you have to give the reason for that in the disclosure, and then you can just write in the report that if you are not doing it, so why you are not doing this. So complete framework just define that. So mainly I think from the presentation itself you can see that mostly it is about environment and health and well-being and social attributes. So when it's about GHG emission, water footprint, energy, waste, and if you see the social attributes, it's about the gender diversity, employee well-being, inclusive development, fairness in customers and suppliers. So this is the BRSR code, which is very, very important. And 150 companies in just last financial year, if you see, they have started with the BRSR core already. And SEBI has now made a mandate for the 1,000 companies within the 4 years. But the most important thing is the value chain under the BRSR core has been defined as an upstream and downstream partner. So that's the most important to address your scope 3 emissions and how you can influence your, I would say, stakeholders, external stakeholders, your value supply chain. So that's very, very important here. So that's, I think, good move by SEBI, I would say, to influence MSMEs and SMEs. Next. Huh. So here you can see that when the SEBI has mandated that the listed companies must take their ESG disclosure for their value chain. I think this is a game changer because there are a lot of MSMEs and small scale industry sector in India which need to be influenced, which need to be encouraged about good practices. So I think this is going to be the game changer. This is just a start, but this is going to be really having a bigger, large impact, I would say, macro level. Even let me tell you, the CII, FICI, and then SOCHM, they all have joined hand with the SEBI, and they have already come up with some guidelines to educate, small scale and micro level these industry businesses. This is going to be having very big positive and long term impact in a, I would say, large way. Next. And I would like to tell you just a very new happening that's about the green credits, specifically for the sixth principle. Sixth principle I have explained about this is specifically about the environment protection. So if you see this credit program, which was launched by SEBI, this is very much in news now in 2024. So here the listed companies and their value chain partners under BRSR core, which I just mentioned in the last slide, they can go for these green credits. And approved activities, you can say they are carbon credits, water credits, energy efficiency credits, and biodiversity credits. So you can see that overall it's a nature based solutions also to avail these credits, and you can cut down your carbon emissions by doing some offsets using purchasing green power, or you can use some nature based solutions also to have these benefits. So basically, overall, I would say that inclusion in BRSR shall incentivize the listed entities and their value chain partners, which is a wonderful initiative by SEBI. And I would like to congratulate SEBI. And this is a good move. And I hope that let's see the positive impact in the future, that how these small scale and MSMEs are going to learn about these good practices and they are going to execute effectively, so that we can map all the resource efficiency and we can see that best BRSR practices in the mainstream of the market.